And I was standing there in the middle of the pool with my shorts on, shivering, standing because I wouldn't go down because it's too cold, reading my book in the middle of the pool, just standing there. And there was apartment blocks opposite, and people were like pointing at me and looking at me, and as if to say, "What is this guy doing?" And I stood there for 5 minutes and put my towel around me and went back to my room.
Anything to feel like David Goggins.
Jake.
Jack.
I got back at 2 a.m. last night.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't go to bed early like me. You've been away again, so there's a story for everyone.
Yeah, everyone. I went to watch the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, which was great fun. I'm a bit of an F1 fan. Can I just tell a really quick story?
Yeah,
it's quite funny. On Sunday morning, I was like, God, I really fancy going to the top deck to the hotel pool, and the pool was like really, really small and really shallow. It seems right, quite a small area. And I said to the hotel staff on Saturday night, look, I'd like to go up at 8 a.m. Is that okay before the big race? Like I'm racing myself, right?
Before I have to get in one of these cars and go for it.
Yeah. So, and the hotel stuff opens at 9, but for you, we'll open it up at 8. Not like I'm a famous guy. It's just
were you wearing like a like racing track?
I was wearing a Red Bull hat.
Yeah, they're thinking we better
maybe
treat
they
this
thought
guy
I was
well.
a driver. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's really kind of you. So anyway, Sunday morning, woke up and looked out the window, Barcelona, raining, right? And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go up to swim.
Yeah, because they've opened it for
Because they've opened it for me, right? And I don't want to be the guy that asks, and that's just rude. So I went up there like a complete wally, right? And got me shorts, got in the pool. It was freezing, okay? Because it's like 12 degrees in the 8 a.m. in the morning and raining. And I took my book up there and everything, right? Because I got a new book at the airport, as you do. And I was standing there in the middle of the pool with my shorts on, shivering, standing because I wouldn't go down because it's too cold, reading my book in the middle of the pool, just standing there. And there was apartment blocks opposite, and people were like pointing at me and looking at me, and as if to say, "What is this guy doing?" And I stood there for 5 minutes and put my towel around me and went back to my room.
Anything to feel like David Goggins.
Well, anything to just not let the hotel staff down. Jake.
I love how you went the full, like you bought a book, you went into some cold water, you got up early.
Yep.
I love it.
Anyway, that was a funny story of the weekend. But yeah, home late last night, and I'm right here, ready to go.
Nice. Well, you launched yourself into the pool, and we're going to talk about launching a gym.
Good segue.
So, I mean, if you listen to this podcast, obviously we talk a lot about launching a gym to capacity. That's kind of like our shtick. But I thought today would be a good opportunity to go through one of the strategies that we use, because I don't think we've actually talked about it in lots of detail, and that's kind of what I want to go through today.
We made up and built this framework, Jake.
We did. And we gave it a name, like every framework that you create. And we've called it the appointment queue. Okay. And we're going to talk you through exactly what that looks like and how you could use it. And by the way, this doesn't necessarily have to just be for a new gym. This can be for a new membership offer or a new workshop you're looking to promote or something that you want to build hype for and get lots of people to attend. The whole mechanism will work.
Yeah, you can use this if you're dating.
You could. Yeah.
Couldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, have you? Or
No, I haven't tried that out myself.
No.
But I mean, you could.
It'd be a bit weird, but anyway. By the way, before we get into this, should we just quickly give Matt and Kelly a shout out from our visit last week?
Yeah, do it.
So Matt and Kelly, we just started working with them. They are up north in Bradford. Obviously, we're down south. So traveling up north was quite the trek.
We had to stop at 4 superchargers.
We did, again. Jack's Tesla is a common theme of this podcast. But also one thing that I don't know whether all Southern people do this when they go up north, but we kind of just stood there and like, Jake, did you know it's like 1 degree or 2 degree colder up north? And we were like we're like doing that thing where you like lick your index finger and point it to the sky and be like, yeah, this does feel colder. But it was a good trip. We got to talk. They're 1 week into the launch campaign, over 300 people on the waiting list. Boom. And we're week 2 now. So Matt, Kelly, if you're listening, keep up the good work.
Yeah,
it's going to be really exciting.
I love what they're doing because they own a studio called Bird Box, which is it's so cool, isn't it, Jake?
Yeah, it's like an old Victorian mill.
Yeah, and it's massive. Place is massive inside. Done a great job there. And Kelly is building a studio within Bird Box called, I better not, because she hasn't released the name yet, so I better not. But it's going to be awesome. What a beautiful facility
I love gyms with character. I mean, it looked like the Paul Tuckett Brewery of Family Guy, just that huge, old-looking building.
So cool.
But yeah, no, it's really, really cool. And it's apt for this podcast because we're going to talk about the strategy that they're going to undertake as well. So that strategy is the appointment queue. And this was something that we did, again, intuitively when we launched this location. We've started to actually kind of perfect it, polish it, turn it into a framework. But the whole premise of it is it's based on a queue, obviously, as the name says. So long story short, one of my realizations, I mean, with anything is like when concerts launch their tickets or when you go to a theme park or anything like this, usually what happens is that you end up getting different segments of people based on their interests, right? So my wife actually worked in Disneyland for a long time. She was one of the princesses. Don't make any jokes. And I went to go and visit her, right? Or visit Princess Jasmine. So I went by myself.
Hopefully there's no kids listening to this because
again,
you've just ruined it.
This is the whole point. I looked really, really weird going to Disneyland by myself, standing in a queue amongst loads of different people. I felt bad that I was in front of people who genuinely wanted to see their heroes. And I was there eating my cornetto, just living life. But anyway, what I noticed was in the queue, and this is the way that Disney do it for a lot of their rides and a lot of their attractions, is that they have different segments, right? So you got the people who are at the front of the queue and they're bought the fast track passes. These are the fanatics, right? Then you got the other people who perhaps have joined the queue, that specific queue because they want to go on that specific ride, but they haven't been warm enough to actually get a fast track ticket. And then you got the people who are just having to walk past and they see that attraction. They're like, I'm going to join this queue. So that's 3 different segments of the queue. And the way that we've coined these is that you've got the people at the front of the queue, skip the queue. You got the people in the middle, which is the waiting list. And you got everybody else, which is the public, right? So that's the way that we kind of built this framework. And this is what we use when we launched this location and what we recommend using for, what we're going to use for all of our other locations. So I'm going to walk through in terms of all of the rules and all of the different conditions that you need to set in order for this queue to form. Because one thing saying, come and join this gym, but if you actually don't put the work and the constraints in to actually get this queue forming, then you're going to launch to no one.
Yeah, cool. So let's go through the steps. Cube, there's 4 steps.
Yes.
Let's go through step 1, Jake. You hit it. I'm going to do a lot of listening.
Cool. No, so step 1 is to set the capacity. And this might sound counterintuitive because essentially what you're doing is you're limiting the amount of revenue that you make. But there's a psychology aspect to this, which when you actually constrain the amount of people that you're willing to come and join your business, the demand increases, right? So there's that kind of balance between supply and demand. So what you want to do is obviously have that counterbalance so that the demand outweighs the supply. And the way that you do that is by setting the capacity, adding scarcity and all that kind of thing. And in terms of actually communicating that capacity, we did it in every single email of our lead up letters.
Yeah.
So every week, again, this might be news to some people, might not be news for others, but every week we sent an update to our waiting list in the lead up to launching the gym with something that we're doing, right? So we've just painted the walls. Here's an email. We've just added new coaches to the team. Here's an email. So we did loads of different broadcasts like that. But at the beginning of every single email, we had a line which was hello to X number on our waiting list, right? So what that did is that enabled people to see how many people they're up against. But in every single email as well, we put a PS, when we launched the gym, we're only opening up this many spaces.
Yeah.
So people could see that difference between the number of people that they're up against versus the number of places actually available in the gym.
Yeah.
And obviously the number available in the gym was much lower than the amount of people that they're up against.
Yeah, love that.
Hey, quick one from us. If you're enjoying this episode, you'll love our free weekly newsletter.
It's for current and aspiring studio owners who are looking for the latest growth hacks to sign up more members and keep them.
It's a quick 2-minute email covering the stuff we're testing in our own gyms.
So you'll be getting access to what's working today.
If you're interested, you can join 3,500 gym owners and go to thefitpreneur.com and subscribe.
That's thefitpreneur.com. Anyway, back to the episode.
Just explain scarcity, Jake, for the audience, because one thing that was extremely important to us, and we always give advice to everyone else, is to use ethical scarcity. So as soon as you lie about your capacity, you pretty much lose all your leverage, right, with this. So it has to be ethically done, and that's why actually building a proper launch campaign is so important, because the numbers will speak for themselves anyway. So just talk a little about scarcity if you can.
Yeah, so we're going to go into urgency as well, but the difference between the two is scarcity is the amount of units available, right? And urgency is the amount of time available. So if you can play into both of those, then you're going to form a queue in the lead up to launching your gym. So yeah, to your point, like once we figured out what that number was and how many people we're going to add to the gym, we didn't deviate from that, because we knew that if we were to say a number and then go over that number, then the amount of trust that would lose in the market wouldn't be worth for the short-term cash flow that would make.
Yeah.
And if anything, by decreasing that number on the front end, but having way more demand, will just increase your chances of conversion later down the line. So you got to have this like long-term view on capacity, because so many studio owners will try and, eyes are bigger than their belly, and they'll try and add loads more people at the beginning. But then remember, like the first 8 weeks of your program, with those first 6 week challenges that you bring into the business, like that is the worst your 6 week challenge will ever be.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. It's like, I'd much rather less people in on the front end enable me to then refine the product so that the next intake will get a better product, and then the next will get a better and better and better, and so on.
Making the process measured.
100%. So that is number one, is just to set that capacity. Make it a number that you are confident you'll reach. Because one thing that you can always do is for your next intake, for example, you can then increase, the amount of people that you want to intake. So,
and also make it a number that won't cause issues in member satisfaction. So if you think that you have a 80 capacity, right, having never actually had a gym with an 80 capacity before, or run the timetable with 80, don't go to 80, go to 60 and see how it feels, because you can obviously then take more. But what you don't want to do is have 80 people in, members not being able to book sessions, not really enjoy their experience, and have like a 40% recommitment rate to membership, right?
Yeah, and at the beginning, like, you got to remember as well that people will have a chance to assess you and your business and the product in that first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing, say for example, you're bringing 20 more people than you feel necessary, and your retention rate is poor, those people will never ever buy from you ever again.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather at the beginning just be a little bit more conservative in terms of your capacity, so you can reach that and you can release the news that you've reached that to all of your waiting lists, because that's powerful too.
And one huge advantage of that, Jake, just quickly there to butt in, sorry, but if you open to 60 and provide an amazing product to 60, the likelihood of you having to run ads for the second intake is so low, because out of those 60, 20 of those are going to say to their friends what an incredible experience it's been. So your next intake could be referrals anyway.
100%. And one thing that we actually did is we had appointments booked in the diary that we had to cancel. So there's nothing more powerful and nothing, that signals your demand more than having appointments in the diary that you then reach out to those people and say, look, I'm really sorry, but we're full. Because those people, a lot of those people I know then booked straight away the next time, and we gave those priority, and then they obviously signed up.
That's right.
Number 2 is to add a deadline. So we mentioned it earlier. We've got the scarcity box ticked. Now is the urgency box. So adding a deadline and setting a clear start date just kind of squeezes everybody into your queue that you want, right? Because nothing worse than having an open-ended start date. Because then what do people do? They just wait until the last minute, or they just,
there's no urgency.
They think, I'll just do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And again, like for beginner studio owners, they always think, I'm not going to set my capacity because I'm worried that I'm limiting myself, and I'm not going to set a start date because I just want to make sure that I'm not losing anybody in that first intake. But ironically, without doing both, you're gonna mess up. So that is how I would introduce the urgency: is setting a clear start date, at least when you launch your gym at the start. We've gone into evergreen onboarding now, so everybody starts asynchronously now. We don't start everybody at the same time. We used to do cohort based at the beginning, because that allowed us to tap into a lot of what we've just spoken about here. And also one of the bonuses about getting in early and getting in this first intake is that we coined the phrase founding members to all of these people. So all of these people that joined first got a t-shirt that said founding member on. So that was something, again, that spoke to their identity and incentivized them to sign up and be the early adopters that will later become our founding members. And obviously, a majority of those people that started in the 6 weeks are still here today.
Yeah. Love that. Well, that's 2. I think you covered urgency there, Jake.
Yep.
Step 3, form the queue. This is my favorite. And I think this is, we kind of walked into this strategy a little because one day you were like, I think what we're going to do is, Jake's always so good at coming up with these ideas, mainly because of how much reading he does on marketing and understanding these strategies. So now, obviously, we've set the capacity, we've added a deadline. Now we need to form the queue or the queues.
Yeah,
That's how we
so
coined it.
I mean, what did we have at this point? This was like leading up to our sales consultations, right? So up to this point, we'd already sent like 10 weeks worth of weekly emails.
We're taking the public with us on logo, coaches, location. We'd set up business partnerships locally. Like all of that had been done. So at this point, I'd say we had 600-700 people on our waiting list ready to go.
So this was where all of that nurturing, it kind of all led up to this point, right?
Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah. So what we needed to do, we needed lots of appointments booked in the diary because we knew the more appointments we had, the more that would show up, the more people that show up, the more chances they were to buy, the more people that were to buy, the more chances that we would be able to convert them into members, right? So it's a numbers game. So we had to get as many appointments booked in a short amount of time as possible. I think we had like 2 to 3 weeks of sales consultations like blocked out. So what we did is we manufactured this queue. So right now, all we had was a list of emails on our waiting list and the public in the Facebook group and Instagram and so on. So what we needed to do is to segment the waiting list into the now buyers, into the later buyers, and obviously further on into the public, the future buyers. So the way we did this, we had a waiting list there. So we basically released the offer in terms of what the offer was going to be, this 6-week challenge. Here's what it entails. Here's what it looks like. We didn't publicize price anywhere because it's always been our ethos that we want people to actually attend the consultation and go through the sales process before we actually pitch the price.
We want them to have intent.
Yeah, so we never publicized price. But what we did is obviously we told everybody about this offer. And then the next day we said, by the way, I know yesterday we told you all about this offer, but the amount of people that we've had raise their hand and tell us they're interested has just been completely overwhelming because obviously it was. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow some of you people to skip the queue. So whilst the rest of the waiting list are going to receive their chance to book an appointment at 8 a.m. Tomorrow, you guys, whoever wants to skip the queue, will receive their email 1 hour before at 7 a.m. This will give you a chance to essentially guarantee your consultation based on the fact that, remember, we've already signaled the amount of people that are on this waiting list for 10 weeks prior. The amount of people on this waiting list, you're going to get a chance to actually book your consultation before anyone else.
Yep. So back to the Disney queues.
Yeah. So then
This is the fast track.
that allowed us to fast track those people into the front of the queue. Okay. But also the intent was going to be way higher because these people have been following our emails and they've followed through on the call to action, which is, I'm going to skip the queue. I'm going to actually submit my details to make sure that I skip the queue. So what we had about 49 people do that. Okay. So that then gave us the rest of the waiting list already there. We had 49 people at the beginning, and obviously we had the rest of the public in the Facebook group and so on.
And just from a sales perspective, 49 people skipped the queue to book their appointment. We knew that we could probably count on 90 to 100% of those actually booking an appointment, right?
Yeah, and we knew this information the day before the rest of the calendar was going to go live. So it gave us a signal of demand from the off. I remember that night, like I was driving to football five-a-side and we kept getting like all those skip the queues in. I was thinking, yeah, tomorrow morning is going to be a good day. So it just gave us a little bit of confidence from the off. So then what happened, obviously, we opened the doors to the appointments. So we had the people already tagged with skip the queue, already segmented. We had the waiting list already there as well. So what we then did is obviously we prioritized the queue based on the order, but we also added scarcity based on where they were in the queue. And let me explain.
So this is step 4.
Yes.
Okay.
So at 7 a.m. on the appointment day, we sent that email to everybody with the tag skip the queue. Okay. So they got that first email. And like we said, 49 of those people booked an appointment, okay, for skip the queue. 1 hour later, we sent that very same email, no changes at all, to the rest of the waiting list, excluding anybody that had skipped the queue. Okay. So that was 528 people, I believe, from the waiting list got the chance to then book an appointment. But at each step, we added scarcity. So we basically said to everybody at 7 a.m. who'd skipped the queue, in 1 hour, 528 people are going to get this email.
The public will be let in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we said then to everybody in the waiting list, next week, the rest of the public are going to get this email.
Sure, that's what we did. Yeah. Yeah.
So then
Henry's going, God, this hurting his head.
And this is the funny thing about when we coach our clients and I'm talking them through this whole process, they're like, can we just not send an email out? Just send one email. And I'm like, look, trust me, I know this sounds like really complicated, but it works, right? And this is obviously what we're seeing with other clients. So 49 people then booked based on the fact that they skipped the queue. 528 people from the waiting list were then given the opportunity to book an appointment. And then I think 1 week later, we then opened up the doors to the public. So we had like a whole week of people in our waiting list and people who skipped the queue having their appointments, which obviously led to a point where when we actually ended up opening up to the public, there weren't many spaces left, and which then obviously resulted in us having to cancel a lot of those appointments because we'd reached our capacity.
Yeah, we reached 60. I think we might have gone to 63, something like that.
Yeah.
But we reached our number, and I think we had to cancel about 17 consultations. So what we did was those 17, we apologized. I'm really sorry. There's no space. We are completely full. But if you'd like, we can put you on the priority waiting list for our next intake.
See what we're doing there? So we've got this queue, visualize a queue, and the people that missed out, we then gave them a chance to skip the queue to get to the front. So we're constantly revolving.
Exactly. And a large percentage of those 17 said, yes, please, absolutely, yes, absolutely. 2 months later, in December, when we opened up for our new intake, we didn't need to market the new intake because out of those 17, we filled the spots.
Yeah. So this is like what we mentioned earlier. Like, this is how festivals do it. This is how big music artists do it when they're touring. Like they open up their like early bird tickets, for example. Like, this is how you create tension in the marketplace to a point where people want to buy because they're looking around, they're thinking, everyone else is doing it. Everybody else is jumping at the chance. Like, it's enough proof for me to do the same.
Yeah, and obviously we let the skip the queues know that they'd get the email at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? Tomorrow.
And a text. So it was an SMS and an email at the same time.
The amount of people that said, I was up half an hour before 7 a.m. getting ready for that email and text message so I could get booked before it went out to the rest of the waiting list at 8 a.m. was unreal.
And by the way, like, we did the same publicly as well. So like the day before the appointment, the calendars went live, we went into the Facebook group and we're like, look, if you're not on our waiting list by this point, you might not be able to join our gym in the first intake. So I'd recommend you join the waiting list. They then obviously got the email to then join us, get the queue list if they wanted to. So at every single step, we were giving people the chance to go further in the queue and obviously get closer to the attraction, which is the gym.
And because we were being very, very public with pictures of new members holding their founder t-shirts. So we're putting that in the local Facebook group under our post when we opened up the offer in the comments. And we're also putting it on Instagram. And the majority of people who were on our waiting list were following us either side of those things. They were seeing how quickly we were getting full and how quickly new members were joining. So it just added to the urgency as we went through the process.
And this is like how you manufacture that big thunderclap moment. Like when the calendar goes live, this is how you get like the ding, 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 ding notifications, because everybody, like you say, is waiting for that moment to then book a consultation. It's like we make it into a huge event. And that's what we did. So we had like loads of those people booking appointments from minute one. And then we ended up filling the gym in 2 weeks. So yeah, it was a long 10 days, I think specifically, was like the amount of appointments we took like back to back. Well, I say you took them back to back.
I think I took something around 80, I guess.
Yeah.
That number, 80 appointments. But just to summarize, that was tactical. Step one is set the capacity. So we talked about number of people, right? And we obviously talked about how in the lead up letters, we let everyone know at the beginning of the letter exactly how many people are on the waiting list. Step two, add a deadline. So we talked about start date, like when offers going to be opened. So we have that urgency. Step three, we formed the queue or queues, right? So skip the queue was hot, waiting list warm, obviously, and the public was cold. And we let them know that it's going out to those lists at certain times. And then step 4, open the doors. Okay, so we obviously got the offer out to people that skipped the queue, had them in for consults, and then went straight to the waiting list. And then finally, we let a few people in from the public as well. So yeah, that is the fastest way to launch a gym. And we did that in 10 days.
Yep.
And our clients are following the exact same process as we did.
Obviously, that was like 10 weeks up until those 10 days. But in terms of actually generating cash and bringing new people into the business, it was a 10-day window of lots of appointments, lots of people signing up. And like I said, this is like applicable not only to a gym launch, but like to if you're looking to launch a new membership offer, right? And you want to create that demand. It's all about that balance between supply and demand. Also, any workshops that you're looking to do, anything that you want to build a buzz around, I would recommend following this process. You don't have to necessarily do it over like a 12-week period like we did. You could do it over like a 1-week period or even like a 2-post type of thing, but it just gives you an opportunity to actually get a signal of demand, figure out actually what interest there is for whatever you're doing and get that queue forming. Because ultimately you want to become like, what does every theme park have? They have like a top attraction. They have something that everybody wants to go there for. So if you think of that like in terms of your market, then you want to become the top attraction and you want to be the place where everybody queues up for. And that's how you do it.
Love it, dude. Nothing else to add. That was fun to listen to.
I like how these podcasts, like there's some obviously that fall into your skill set that you,
last week
I
was
sit
me.
back and then there's others that fall into, but that's why obviously we love doing what we do. And, but yeah, if you can be a gym owner that taps into both of these, I mean, there's 2 of us, yes, but like we know some guys who master all of this, right? Who just kind of are like absolute
High
warriors.
level. Yeah.
So, you know, that's why we have this podcast, is to give you a glimpse into all of the different areas of what we do. And hopefully you can take it away and fill your gym.
Yeah. So guys, if you've enjoyed this, if you found it helpful, make sure that you subscribe, make sure you like wherever you are right now and share it with anyone who you think needs to hear it.
Have a good day.
That's the pod.